Good morning, church. This is Zechariah Jackson. Today, my sermon is going to come from Jonah. I want to talk about evil, and I want to talk about folks that no matter what God said, they did a different. Adam and Eve was the first to disobey God. Satan was able to have his way with Eve because she listened to God, but she didn't believe God all the way. So the supplanter, which is Satan the devil, was able to penetrate her. You notice this right here, church. You notice this right here. Anytime you have a couple, married couple, and there's some underhand stuff going on people that approach them, they look for the one they can penetrate. Classic example, church. If you go to a car dealership, let's say me and my wife go to a car dealership, and my wife go in first, and let's say one of them big Mercedes-Benz dealers or Lexus dealers, and she going, oh man, they're gonna treat her real nice. They're gonna talk so sweet to her, this, that, and other, tell her how fine she look and all these things, because they're trying to sell a $70,000 to $90,000 or $100,000 car. And, you know, they have her going. And they have their way, basically, for a minute with her. Until she look up and say, oh, my husband is coming. Then it's almost like, remember when we used to use those little, what do you call it, they we put in our car for directions? GPS's, TomTom, and you make a turn, that thing starts spinning and spinning and recalculate. They have to recalculate themselves because a lot of times they done said some things that they can get past her, but then they're wondering, now they got to figure out who is he. Or vice versa, today vice versa also. They always try to penetrate one against the other in so many words. Because the devil know that, the only way he can win if he can find a way in. A lot of us don't believe that he's out to get us, and he is out to get us all the time. And just in a split second, if you don't stay prayed up, church, the devil can enter and cause something, an effect that's going to take you years to get over. So, be prayed up and be careful with people. Today, I want to talk about Jonah. Jonah was commissioned, church, to do the work of God. But he ran from God. Now, you may ask, church, how do we know whether a person was commissioned by God to do a particular thing? How do we weigh that? That's very hard calculation. It's very hard to say, But if your gut feeling tell you something, you be careful. If your gut feeling say don't travel with this person, or don't do this with this person, or lay back on some things, you listen to that gut feeling because that's the nudge of God telling you not to go ahead. Jonah tries to run away from the Lord. When the Lord came to Jonah and spoke to him and told him what to do, to go to the great city, Jonah decided to go someplace else. So, because he decided to do something else, he wound up in a whirlwind. See, he wound up in a whirlpool because of that. See, so it says in Jonah chapter 1 verse 3, but Jonah ran from the Lord, and he thought that he hid, that he can go down to Tarshish and hide. But he wound up finding himself in a whirlwind. When Jonah looked for ways to escape from the Lord, where he took money and things to paid fares to get away from the Lord. And a lot of people are on board away from the Lord. Not many are on board away from the devil and his actions, but many are on the board, on their way from the Lord. They don't even know how they're being used by the devil to create havoc in the world and also in their personal life. So many of them don't even realize that. But I'm here to tell you that they are. Where he found a ship bound for that port after paying the fare aboard and sail for the Tarshish to flee from the Lord. Say. And then he thought that he was going to get away from the Lord. And you notice how strange that is, how a person, church, can feel that they can run from the Lord, but they don't ever think they can run from the devil. They don't ever think that the devil even need to be ran from. I'm reminded years ago when I was on my job and I found a kilo of cocaine. I grew up in a city where drugs was plentiful. I had never, ever seen cocaine. Because as a young person coming up in Provish, I outlawed all that. Now, I seen reefer, right? I never smoked no reefer, never sold any reefer, but I definitely never seen no cocaine or any other drugs. And when I found this kilo, which was nothing but the devil, a lot of the people that worked with me that had come from a better economic background than me was willing to sell the drugs. Told me that they could put it on the street and sell it, this, that, and other. Now, here are people, church, that have jobs today that 30 years ago their fathers and mothers couldn't get those jobs. See, because of the way the system was against them. But they act like they wasn't conscious of it, and they were willing to take a chance to sell the drugs. But because of my moral character and my belief in God and my understanding of the low-life devil and his actions to feed your greed or to feed your hunger, I knew that he would set you up with all kinds of things. And so I turned the drugs in. And for a week or two, I used to check under my truck for bombs. Because I sometimes wonder, well, some of them people that I work with, was that drugs, did them drugs belong to them? But now, let's get back to Jonah. Jonah felt that he could run from the Lord. But the Lord had a special job for him to do. It says in chapter 1 verse, Jonah chapter 1 verse 4, that the Lord sent a great wind on the sea, And such a violent storm arose that the ship threatened to break up. All the sailors, church, were afraid and cried out to his own God, and they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the load. Now let me show you something. Let's talk about the sailor's cargo. But because, see, they didn't know who Jonah was. Jonah was a paid person. He paid to get on the ship. These people was workers. And I'm sure when you look at cargo and you look at those videos today of the people go out for the Alaskan crabs and the work that they got to do. So all of that work that they did, or the cargo that they were carrying, church, all the cargo and stuff that they were carrying, they had to throw it overboard. Now that's like maybe a month's worth of work. You understand me? Because that's how they made they living. Their families at the shore. Their families at the landing as they go out into the sea. You know, that would be like me leaving here today and getting on a rocket and I got to work in space and come back in 2 or 3 days. And I have to throw my cargo out to make a smooth landing. And of course, the cargo coming before me going to hit the ground and splatter, so there's going to be nothing left. And this is what happened to the sailors on the ship. So they cried out to his God, to their own gods. And they threw the cargo into the sea to lighten the ship. But Jonah had gone below deck. Look at this, church. Where he laid down and fell into a deep sleep. Now, let's look at this here. He fell into a deep sleep. Now, church, think about this right here. When people are unaccountable for what God wants them to do, it doesn't matter when trouble comes. See, because they're asleep, because they were on a mission that they failed to try to accomplish. So the idea is they can be with you and they will fall asleep, whether it's a physical sleep or it's a mental sleep. But they will fall asleep, church. Why? Because it doesn't matter to them. It does not matter to them. I tell you why it doesn't matter. Because they're on, right, something else. And that's why you have to be very careful of your association, and also not just your association, on how far you go with your association. Because there's no way to tell who has a call on them. There's no way to tell who's right and wrong. So therefore, don't go all into people. Whether it's family members or whether it's just people you meet. Don't go all into them. You can be friends with people without going all into them. There's a boundary. There's a governance that governs your speed with people. I remember when I used to ride the mini bikes, me and my friends years ago, church, and the engines was Tecumseh engines. And they had a carburetor. And the carburetor was set with a governor. But what we would do, we would bend the governor to give us more speed. Almost all our bikes had the governor bent so we can get more speed. What I'm telling you, church, today, you stop bending the governor when you deal with the governor when you're dealing with people. You have a limit on dealing with people. You understand? You go so far with folk. Don't go all into people where you just go and you blindly obedient to them. That's not God. That's not God at all. See? And that's why a lot of times we have problems with folk, because we don't know when to say, that's enough. Whether it's a companion, or a sibling, or even to a husband or wife. We don't know how to see people, church. You know, I spend a lot of time alone as a man, because a lot of people try to come and go too far. But they know good well I will stop them, you understand me, on how far I'm going with you. You're not going to lead me right down the blind alley. Not if I can help it. You're not going to lead me there. I'm going to stop you right there in your tracks and say, okay, I tell you what, you go ahead. It come to me years ago when I was a little young man, 14 years old. And I remember, church, when a lot of my friends decided to smoke reefer. I remember. And I grew right up here in Newark on Howard Street, church. And I remember them taking their very dollar to buy a joint. So they said, come on, why don't you get one of these joints with me? And I told them, no, I'm not buying no joint. I don't believe in it. And basically exactly what I said. I think it's foolishness. I'm going to buy me 4 Macintosh apples from Paul's Supermarket, which was on West King Street. Sometime I could get 4 for $1, right? And sometimes 3, because sometimes the lady would charge me $1.05, according to who it was. Sometimes the lady would just, beckon her hands and put the 4 apples in there and take the $1. She'd take the change out of a, some extra change somebody left in prayer. But then there was some that would actually require $1.05, $1.06. So they would kindly give me 3 apples and change. But then when I would come back around Howard Street, eat my Macintosh apples, my friends thought that now they wanted to bite. At that time, we would bite each other's apples. And let me have a bite. And my thing was no. I said, you got the munchies or whatever you call it. I don't know what the hell you call it. But whatever you got, you paid for it. So you deal with that. You're not getting no bite of my apples. And I would kindly sit there and I would eat the whole apple, even to the seeds. I just stopped eating the seeds years ago, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. I would eat the whole apple because, I come up very impoverished. I didn't have money like even a lot of them. Fathers had good jobs and we didn't have that. My mother and father were 42 to 45 years older than me, and they were seniors already. Time I was 10, 11 years old. So I knew I had a limit. I knew what I had to do. But some people, no matter what their limit's supposed to be, that they will meet folk and jump all the way into the river with them. And that right there is the problem. They'll meet folks and they don't recognize what God that's done for them. I know many people that God has overlooked, oversaved and uplift, but they can't recognize it because they're too busy putting themselves in a category with everybody else. It's something about that, church, that they are in a category with everybody else. They're not an individual. And I try to talk to some of my friends that I know that God had given a blessing. As Joel Osteen said one time in one of his sermons, no matter what happened, God folds his hands and let them through. But then they don't recognize that, church. So they want to be like everybody else. They don't want to say, hey, God, lift me up. But I got news for those people. If those other people, right, if those other people could be like God wanted, like you are, like God bless you to be, they wouldn't want to be like you. They'll leave you right in the dust, amen? But see, some of us don't get the blessing of God. We go to church, we act like we're praying, but we don't get the blessing. Now let's get back to this, to the scripture. So then, Jonah, again, had gone below deck, like many people that got a calling on them, right? They leave you and go below deck when they don't do what God has told them to do because they know trouble lie here. Where he laid down and fell into a deep church sleep. While trouble was coming, right? Think about it now. While trouble was coming, right? And they know, hey man, listen, I'm going to sleep. While trouble was coming, they done already, church, they into a deep sleep and you're going crazy. So you're going crazy because you decided to nurse and hang out with these people and give all your energy to them where they done already fell asleep. They don't care what happened. Now, listen to this part, okay? Verse 6, chapter 1, verse 6. The captain went to him and said, how can you sleep? Get up and call on your God. Now that's what the captain said, because the captain, he's the captain of the ship. So if he's the captain of the ship, he's the head steward. He knows everything that goes on the ship, because not only do he navigate the ship, but also he got to keep calm among the people on the ship. So therefore, the captain has to know what's going on in his ship. So when the captain seen everybody else crying out to their God, then where is this person, this other person, right, that paid the fare? Where is he? So when his shipmate said, "Don't know, he downstairs sleeping." Well, how in the world can he be sleeping, church, when we're going crazy and think we get throw our cargo overboard, and we're about ready to, this ship is about ready to turn over because the sea is uncalm. Now, how many times, church, have your sea been uncalmed? Your sea was uncalm because you were dealing in situations that was of no good to you, for you. And you didn't know when to get out of it. Now, you know what I want to say. You didn't know when to get out of that. No. So what you did, church, you held on and hung in there. Well, I got news for you. I got news. When I was raised in Parvish years ago, right here in Newark, New Jersey, my family been in Newark 99 years. When I was raised in Parvish, I don't remember. I remember some kind friends, but I don't remember friends that cried with me when I couldn't get a brand new bicycle in 1975. I don't remember, church, in 1974 when Daddy was blind and Mama and Daddy was of age and I couldn't afford a brand new trains, a Tyco train set. That my friends cried for me when Daddy gave me a bicycle chain and I put roof nails in it and pulled it and called choo-choo, as if though to imaginary train that I had to make. I don't remember when friends cried with me on that. Now, there were some friends that were gentle. There were some friends, church, that understood that I just, that this friend of ours is just as poor as the daylights. Miss Jackson's son is very poor. Now, I had friends that was, they understood that, and they didn't make fun of it. You know what I mean? So they would let me play with their toys, things of that nature, some of them, and everything. And they would let me study their bicycles so I could know how to chain. And when they got the gear bikes and stuff, I could know how the chains worked and everything, whatever, and this, that, and other. And that right there was research for me, because after that Christmas of 75, and I studied how them chains work and how that derailleur hold, which we call a figure 8, hold the chains on, the 10-speed and 5-speed chain on, and when their bikes would break and everything, after a while, I said 6 months all their bikes was mine, and in 9 months I sold them back to them. But now, they were calm on that, but I don't remember no one crying for me like that. So you got to be careful, okay? So the captain went to him and said, "How can you sleep, Jonah? Get up and call on your God. Maybe he will take notice of us and we will not perish." That's how close to death they were. If the captain didn't realize it. Jonah was ready to go. He was in the bottom of the ship. So if the ship would have turned over, he would have been the first to die, because the ship would have swallowed water and then he would have been trapped. The ones at the top would have had at least a few minutes or maybe an hour, because they were at the top. And they would have been on the water. But Jonah was under the ship, so he would have died right away. He didn't care. Then, church, verse 7 says, then the sailors said to each other, "Come, let us cast lots, find out who is responsible for this calamity." They cast lots, and the lot fell on Jonah. So they went to Jonah and said, "Tell us, who is responsible for making all the trouble for us? What do you do? Where do you come from? What is your country? From what people are you? And Jonah answered, I am a Hebrew. I worship the Lord, the God of heaven, who made the sea and the land. Okay? This terrified them, and they asked, what have you done to this Lord? What have you done? They knew he was running from the Lord because of what he said, because he had already told them so. The seas, church, was getting rougher and rougher. So they asked him, what should we do to make the sea calm for us? At least they became thinkers. The sailors became thinkers, church. But after inspired by the captain, Jonah simply said, now see, Jonah was honest. Okay, he was honest. Because some people would have wanted you to go down with him. Jonah said, pick me up and throw me into the sea. He replied, and it will become calm. I know that it is my fault that this great storm has come up on you. How many people, church, are willing to tell you that they are your problem? How many people, church, are willing to be that honest? Because to tell you that they are your problem. Jonah, church, his conscience became rattled. And he decided to tell the truth to the shipmates that I am your problem. Throw me over, and the sea shall be calm for you. Now, this right here, see, this right here is the beginning of trouble for man and womankind. That you got to know when to throw people overboard. Now, I remember growing up, and I had teachers that said, and they thought they were talking right, because most people are victims of their kitchen table. At that time, we all ate together. I don't know how we do it now. At that time, we all 6, 7, 8, 9 people got the table together and ate. And they're victims of that conversation from their kitchen table. As I am reminded, I was talking about down south yesterday to a young man. And a young man, I've known him for years. And he come from the West Indies. So we were talking about down south, and he was telling me some things. And I listened to him, and then I said to him, I'm glad you were able to tell me these things. But I just want you to know that where you talking about is where my family come from 99 years ago. And just like when you around your kitchen table grew up and your family talked about the West Indies, right? And you know about that. That's good. Well, the same way that you were around your kitchen table and your family talked about the West Indies, when I was around my kitchen table, right, my family talked about Florida, Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, you understand me, and North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, you know, District of Columbia, Delaware, and then the state of New Jersey. I just want you to know that. I just want you to know that, because that's how that works. I'm glad you can inform me on some things, but some things, you know, is some things. You know what I'm saying? I had to let him know that. So Jonah was honest, and he knew that it is my fault, so they threw him overboard. Okay? And instead, the men did their best to row back to land. But they could not, for the sea grew even wilder than before. Then they cried to the Lord, O Lord, please do not let us die for taking this man's life. Do not hold us accountable for killing an innocent man, for, oh, my Lord, have done as you please. Then they took Jonah and threw him overboard, and the raging sea grew calm just that fast. So sometimes, church, the message today is that you got to throw some people overboard. It may be, church, I'm sorry to say, it may be some of these grown-ass kids in your house. Now, you can't throw the little, naughty by nature kids overboard yet. You can't do that, right? But after they get 18, you may have to throw them overboard to raise the rest of the kids, because they will stay in your house and stifle and destroy the whole thing when nobody get raised no more, because they felt that they wasn't raised right. You may have to, church, throw a cousin overboard because he is of no good. He is no good, and then it's best to throw him overboard, not so much physically, but to get him out your life, because you warm up to your family in a certain way that you become humble, and he may destroy you. Church, I got news for you. I remember them teachers back in the 70s that would proudly say, them white teachers, that there's no divorce in my family. Well, guess what? Maybe it should have been some divorce in their family, and maybe we wouldn't have havoc. They wouldn't have havoc in their families years later, because when I seen those teachers years later, they look like they went through the naughty wars. Okay, you got to, sometimes in church, you got to throw a wife overboard. A wife got to throw a husband overboard, because you can destroy the family in so many ways today. You can destroy a family morally. You can destroy the family character. You can destroy the family, worst of all, economically, where you got to live in Penn Station in a box and waiting for people to bring you some lunch. There's so many ways today that one can be destroyed. But I'm here to tell you that God give you the message, and he tell you what to do. So again, we leave this message today on. Hang on to yourself. Don't go too far. Be careful, and please stop removing the governors that hold you, you understand me, that hold you from going overboard. This is the Rev Zechariah A. Jackson from the Church of What's Happening. Now, if this message, church, have been a blessing to you, and I pray that it has, please invite the Reverend. Go to Facebook, Zechariah Jackson, and invite me into your church, into your house. I'm willing to come. We'll have church right there in your house, right there on the street. It doesn't matter. If this blessing has been a message to you, please, will you help us to keep this message growing? This is my second message this year. You help us keep this message growing, church. Cash App, COWHN 1963. Again, that's Cash App, COWHN 1963, and you will see my beautiful smile that God has given me. God bless you, and again, Happy New Year.